Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with Satori Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. And today I have a very special treat for you. We speak a lot on the Performance Enhancing Podcast about pursuing your passion. And today's guest screams that message. The question basically is, what would you do if money was no object? And Nick Gray is the epitome of doing that. So I'm not going to share with you what he does. I'm going to let him actually share that story. But this gentleman has hosted a party for a billionaire already. And he started a few years back working in his garage for his parents. And now he's hosting parties for billionaires. We talk about his story and his journey, obviously, which is enlightening. We're also talking about when do you start charging for what you do for fun or your passion, which I know is a sticking point for a lot of people, how to actually turn the thing that you really love doing into a business. And we'll also talk about how your perceived reality is never how reality actually turns out. So without further ado, enjoy part one of my interview with Nick Gray. All right, guys, welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast. The one, the only Nick Gray, which you guys will get to know very well at the end of this. Nick, welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So Nick is outside the box of what we normally do here, but he's got a really cool story and a really, really interesting pursuit of passion, I will say, that really excited me. So I wanted to bring him up because Nick, this is complete tangent, but we make this really funny joke. It's actually not that funny. But we say this thing where we're like, just pursue what you're really passionate about in life. Even if what you're really passionate about is crayons, just be like the best damn crayon drawer ever. And so Nick actually, when I heard the story, I was like, you did what? So we'll get into what you're doing, but just tell people a little bit about yourself and then we'll jump into all the goodies.
All right, great. Short summary, I am a 33-year-old guy. I live in New York City. And about 2 years ago, I completely changed my life by starting to become a professional museum tour guide. I think this is interesting because I have never taken an art history class in my entire life. I didn't even used to like museums. Actually, I kind of hate museums because I think they're boring and my feet always hurt and the paintings have nothing to do with me. But now, today, I have a company. We've got about 15 people on the payroll, and we are the go-to business. If you want to market museums to millennials, that's what my business does.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're going to find out how he ended up down that road. But can you share with people what you shared with me, like what you guys just did out in San Francisco?
Oh, this was wild. Last week, they've never done something like this before, but that seems to happen all the time. We threw a birthday party for a billionaire at a major museum in San Francisco. His family hired us and said, basically, what can you do to make this not a typical birthday party? And so we said, what if we created a tour of this museum about the museum, but also about this individual's life? And so we would, so it's like a privacy thing. I don't know how much I can tell, but I'll give you one example.
Without giving away who it is.
Right, without giving away who it is. We took the people to a coconut octopus, and we would go up and would say, welcome to the aquarium at this museum. This is a coconut octopus. The coconut octopus are known for being incredibly creative and innovative and resourceful, just like the birthday boy. And we created this whole tour that was very kind of a customized private thing.
How cool is that though? It's like someone reached out to Nick and his company to host a party for a billionaire.
Yeah.
Literally like a billion. I mean, I just think that's so cool. So let's kind of backtrack now. That's kind of like the end of the movie scene, right? Like, da, da, da. Now we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and figure out how this whole thing got started. So when you got out of school, you said you didn't study anything to do with art or anything like that.
Never taken an art history class, but I have always had the entrepreneurial bug. And I've kind of been curious, this was like a middle school thing where I would like hustle baseball card deals with my friends. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, every entrepreneur has.
Right. Baseball cards, comic books. I had a little lawn care business. And when I graduated college, my dad was starting up a business out of the basement of our home. And he's always been into planes and aviation. He's kind of like the mad scientist, and my mom's the like steady rock. And he was starting a business in the basement of our home. I figured that I would help him out for a couple months with his company. And it was one of those situations where I'd come home and I'd like install a printer driver, and they would be like, "You are walking on water. How do you do this amazing technology?" I'm like, "I just installed your printer, Mom and Dad." Wow. But it felt really good to be at home and help them.
Now show us how this damn VCR works.
Exactly. And to be honest, I had tried to start a software business in college and it didn't go very well. So I figured, well, I'll come home and help out. This feels good. That being home to help out for a few weeks turned into a few months, turned into a few years. And soon enough, the company had over 60 employees.
Wow.
It was making electronic equipment that was used in private jets and military planes.
Wow. Did you have to go and do the installation as with your parents shouting in the back, like, "Oh yeah,
yeah." I would go out and visit these aircraft. I've been on a large number of private jets, I like to tell people, but they're usually broken and in a hangar. So I've only flown on a very few of them. But yeah, I would go and visit them, and I was lucky to travel all around the world to see some of our equipment.
Wow. Do they still have that company?
The company was sold to a private equity firm a couple months ago, about 2 months ago.
Wow. So your parents are real happy.
My parents are real happy to be away from the stress of running a 60, 70 person business. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So what did you end up doing for the company, and how long were you with your parents?
First, if there's anyone who's listening to this that is like immediately tuned out, that's like, "Yo, this guy just had some rich parents and he just like totally trust fund kid started his own business." Like, I want to be very clear. I'm a privileged individual, but before this business, my dad had fried chicken restaurants. Okay. So like I grew up very lower middle class, always hustling, slinging baseball cards, not rock, just baseball cards. But when the business, I forgot what the question was, but because I heard myself talking, saying like, "Oh, sold to a private equity."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, definitely not high society. Nice. But what did you do for the company with your parents, and how long were you doing that?
Started out just doing, like, this is a great example of how someone who has Facebook and web and marketing skills can drop into a company and totally blow it up. I was doing all of our marketing and print material, all the manuals for the products, creating like a customer support database. That's what I started with. And then I grew into helping with our hiring and recruiting. And eventually when I moved to New York, the company had grown enough where I was doing our sales for all of our customers overseas and internationally.
So now you're hustling digital equipment.
Hustling digital equipment for Saudi royals and stuff like that.
Nice. They're not into baseball cards, I take it. So the electronics probably work better.
Not into baseball cards. Private jets, much better.
There you go. We upgraded the buyers, and then I had to upgrade the product.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So at what point are you like, obviously company's growing, it's family business. That's kind of cool. I'm sure it has its stresses, but at what point are you like, not really what I want to be doing with my life?
as I was growing in my role in the company, I was not a good manager. I wasn't very, like, I'm a head down computer nerd kind of guy, not sort of an emotional intelligence kind of guy. And so it was suggested that I work with an executive coach to help me just do better with my interpersonal communications. And as we got to working together, he was asking me, why do you do this? It's more than just service to family. And so as that question started to go, the question that flipped everything for me was, what would you do if money was no object? And if it didn't matter about anything, you just wanted to work for fun, what would that be? And I said,
that question.
Yeah, it's a cool question, right? So anyhow, so I said, well, I'd probably be doing these museum tours that I've been doing as for fun, for free, as a hobby. And that started to change everything in my mind.
So even while you were working here, you were already doing this museum project kind of as a side thing that you loved, yeah?
This is my big thing, and I hope it doesn't go against what you tell your crew and your customers.
There's nothing that goes against anything I say.
Okay, so I started these tours that I did myself, and I did them for free, and I did them for fun, nonstop, as much as I could to become the expert at giving these private museum tours while I had my regular job. So I had my regular job Monday through Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, I was obsessed with the museum. I was spending all my time there.
It's brilliant. Actually, it's right in line. I think a lot of people come to me mostly because they're fed up with corporate America or a boss that they hate or whatever. And they're like, I'm going to leave it. I'm done. I'm going to start an online business. I'm like, yo, hold it. Let's do one of these for a second here.
Right.
And while I'm all for people kind of like doing the scorched earth policy and just not giving themselves an out and moving full steam ahead, it's not really a strategy built for most people's capabilities, because there's a ton of pressure that comes with, like, okay, say you made $250,000 or $100,000 in your job or whatever it is, and you want to start an online business, then now you're forced in a position where you have to replace that income and do it quickly because, maybe your family is relying on you or whatever it might be. That's a lot of added pressure when you're starting a business. And you and I both know that businesses don't just go like, and all of a sudden you're making $100,000. It just doesn't happen. So I use the example of like, if a train is going X speed and you're jumping off, it's going to really hurt.
Yeah.
But if you get another train moving at that same speed and then you have to jump across, the jump across is nothing. So I'm all for it. And I think pursuing your passion on the side just makes you happy.
I totally agree. And that is the only way that I was able to be successful. If I were to quit that job and start the museum tours fresh, it would have been a huge failure. But for me, I was doing it on the side. And the first time I actually charged for my museum tours, I felt guilty about it because I had so much fun. I gave people their money back at the end of the tour.
What did they say? Hey guys, I just want to take a quick break here and let you know about our 10-day challenge. All you have to do is head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day. And in it, we give you a 10-part video series that is absolutely changing lives, and it's completely free. It's a mindset shift in what is possible for you in your life right now. So I just want to read to you what someone has just written me. And they said, what did the 10-day challenge create for me? In summary, a plan of action. A man with a goal and a plan is unstoppable. Your 10-day challenge allowed me to take all that confusion and fear of my situation and see it was a period of transition. I have a plan. I've taken action and I'm implementing. Success is just over the horizon. And that could be the case for you. So head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day, and grab your 10 free videos today and create a plan of success for you. Now back to the episode.
They thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. They're like, is this candid camera? Like, what's the catch? I was like, I don't know. I just feel weird about this. You guys take your money back.
Amazing. So how long were you doing this before you decided I'm going to actually make a career out of this?
I was doing the free tours for about a year or a year and a half. And I don't know if I I thought I'd make a career out of it. I just kind of figured that it needed to exist beyond just me, right? Because at this point, these tours were becoming very popular. This blog wrote about these renegade tours I gave. And in one day, over 1,000 people emailed me wanting to join the tours. I was like, crap, if I ever get bored of this, like everything goes away and this whole need to experience the museum in a new way goes away. And so that was my job at the beginning, was just to create enough of a business that I could hire one person who could take it over.
Incredible. I just want to back up one step here. Like, at what point do you, because you said you're kind of obsessed with museums, but what happened where you just said, I'm going to start these renegade tours? How did that happen?
Like, I'm smiling because this is a story that is first 110% true. And second of all, I still get butterflies in my stomach as I think about it. It came about from a romantic date.
Nice. All good things.
Yes, like all good things, right? What men do for love.
Yeah.
Before I'd ever been into museums or anything, this woman that I was dating, it was our third date, she suggested we go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for a Friday or Saturday night. And it was her idea, and I was like, all right, I'll go to the Met, but really the Metropolitan Museum of Art is a place that you take like your parents to when they're in town. It's like a tourist destination. It's not like a place for a hot, steamy date, which is what I was hoping. And so she decided to take me there. And I was like, all right, total snooze fest. But then she walks me around and she shows me these things that she was excited about. It was like this little private tour of furniture and Egyptian artifacts and paintings and all this stuff that I never knew that I was interested in. And I started to look around and I was like, holy cow, I think I moved to New York City for stuff and for places like this. And everything changed. That night I fell in love with the museum.
And so then what happened? Then you're like, I got to go back to the museum. Do you go by yourself and get excited? Do you already start inviting friends and just like trying to make shit up as you go along?
I totally caught the bug. I started to go back by myself. Usually I'd have a glass of wine or two. And I said, look, Friday or Saturday nights, I could go to a bar or I could go hang out at like the greatest museum in the world. So it started out, I said, okay, I'll give a couple of Friday, Saturday nights to do that. And I started to go by myself. And eventually my sister came to visit me one weekend. I was like, I'm going to give you a tour of the cool stuff I found. And then for my birthday, like none of my friends were coming up to the museum because they were like, snooze fest, I'm not going all the way up there. So I had to trick them. And I held my birthday party at the museum. So they had to come up there.
Smart boy.
Super renegade too, right? There's no way I could afford to have my birthday party there. So I found what the museum rules were as far as the maximum number of people before you had to register. And I just broke my group into all these small groups and just like spaced them out over the night. Yeah, it's like a super hack way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just showed them. It was for my birthday, my 30th birthday. I became a tour guide. And I said, I'm going to show you 10 cool things at the museum and 3 things that I want to steal.
That's awesome. I love that.
This is not like a very high level art tour. Remember, I've never taken an art history class. I would just talk to people at the level that they wanted to be at. I'd be like, look at this thing. It is made of solid gold and it's meant to hold this magical, mystical ball 500 years ago. Let's look at it and press our faces up to the glass and think about all the stuff we would put inside of it if we stole it.
I love that. How did you, okay, so you become passionate about this. And I know when I become passionate about something, learning becomes like second nature. You can't get enough of it. So how does that process happen? Because you obviously fell in love. How did you educate yourself?
I did a lot of online research, but mostly being in the physical space. for me, being able to go to the museum, they have amazing Wi-Fi, and see an object and then look it up on my phone, use resources that the museum had or use Wikipedia. I would join some of the museum's tours, use their guides with the headsets. I really took like a true multimedia approach, but for me, I guess that's like a little bit of a difference. I believe in the power of museums as a physical space to learn. And there's a lot of amazing online courses, but I'd take it one step farther and say, if you're going to do an online course, go to the museum and sit in front of your laptop and do the online course there.
I like that. So let people know right now, because I just want them to be clear on what the purpose of this is. So what's the company's mission and vision?
We want to get a whole new type of audience excited about museums. That means for us, largely, it's this millennial group, but it's also adults. People who are probably too old to go with a school group, but too young to bring their kids. And I think that for them, maybe they have bad memories of a museum. And this is not everyone by any means. I meet people all the time who love museums, but more often than not, I meet people who think that they're boring, just like I did. So that's the goal. We do not officially work with most of the museums that we tour at. We're a completely sort of outside third-party tour operator, just like some, German or Chinese language tour guide walking through the Met. That's kind of how we go through their rules to get our groups in there.
It's interesting. You just made me realize and this might be the case for a lot of people, but when you travel outside of your country, you tend to go to all of these type of places like museums and, historic buildings and all this stuff. And I remember coming back to New York City after I traveled all through Europe. I lived in Spain for 5 months and then I traveled through all of Europe and I went to like the cathedrals and, museums and all that stuff. I just remember being like, wow, this stuff is amazing. Like there's so much culture and history and all this stuff. And I remember coming back to New York City and going, well, I mean, this is probably like one of the hubs of the world. There's, the museums here are probably just as great, but I've been living here for 20 years and I haven't checked a single one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's pretty cool. And you cater mostly towards residents, not people traveling.
I'd say that the core of what we originally designed is for New York City residents to take another look at this museum that's in their own backyard. That being said, that was the core audience. And now as we grow a business, we work with so many different types of people.
Okay, awesome. So let's kind of take it through the progression of how he builds this. So I just want to make it clear, to me, this is really cool because this is just an out of the box thing. You wake up, you fall in love with a museum, and then you somehow build a business based on your passion. And clearly, I mean, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see how excited Nick is about this.
I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm holding up the motto of our company, which said, can I swear on here to say? What?
That's great.
That's our business card. It says museum. Can I swear on here? Am I allowed to say?
I swear all the time.
So this is our business card. It says in huge big letters, museums are fucking awesome.
And that's actually my saying. Fucking awesome is my saying.
Oh, sweet. Good.
So it's perfect. I love that. I love that. So you start doing these tours, one-off, renegade guy, not making any money.
Right.
Working with your parents. You talk to this executive coach who's like, what would you do? I would do this. And does he say so why don't you do it?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I can't say that it was, to be honest, it wasn't like an overnight sort of decision. Like any huge thing, when you change a job, you leave for a variety of reasons that eventually build up and cascade enough that you make the decision. But for me, that was really the straw that really broke the camel's back and had me seriously thinking, why do I do this? And what is it? And it wasn't an immediate shift. I struggled so much with the idea of charging for these museum tours. I lost a lot of sleep over it because I truly believed in doing these for fun and to share my excitement. But I knew that for me to start a business, And for this to exist as a business and not as like some nonprofit funded with outside sources, that had to happen. We had to start to charge for the tours.
What did you have to give up from an internal dialogue type conversation around collecting money for something that you're so passionate about?
In my own mind, there was always the idea that if I'm doing the tours for free, and if I feel like going to, mess around in this one wing just for the fun of it, then fuck it, I can do that, right? Because it's my tour. I'll do whatever I want. But now once people start to charge for it, their level of expectation completely shifts. At least that's what I thought.
So you had to kind of give up the what would be expected of you and possibly not delivering and things of that nature.
Very much, yeah. I had to give up. At first, in my mind, it was that I was becoming shackled to the customer, and it would be less about fun. That totally did not happen, but that was something I really wrestled with.
Yeah, it's amazing. The reason I asked that was that was going to be my follow-up question. Once you did, what actually transpired? Because I find that mostly we stop ourselves from a perceived reality of sorts that we imagine would be the case. And then as soon as we go through that, it never looks like that.
Right.
It's complete, everything that you assume once you take money and you go in and you're like, oh man, this is going to be this and this and this. And it just completely is not that at all. So
may I say something about that?
Absolutely.
I actually found that people liked and respected my tours so much more when I started to charge for them. When it was a free product, they were like, why are you doing this? What's the catch? People would hear about it and they think it was too good to be true. And once we started to charge for it, people understood. They're like, okay, now I understand. Like this is a thing, like this is entertainment, and we could reach such a wider audience. And there's probably people out there now listening right now who do something that they're better than all their friends, and they want to do it, but they're like, I don't know if I could charge for that. That seems weird. Just trust me, I have been through it. I lost so much sleep about it. And when I first started to charge, of course, there was a little bit of pushback, but man, it opened up the doors of possibility that I never would have been able to do as purely a hobby.
100%. We use this great line. We say people pay to pay attention. If someone shows up and something's free, that's how much they're going to pay attention. Mm-hmm. If they pay you $20, they pay $20 worth of attention. If they pay you $200, that's how much attention. But you may have even been to these type of seminars where you pay like $3,000, $5,000 to be in a room.
Yeah.
You are present.
Right.
You're not fucking around. It's not $20 at a movie where you're just like checking your text messages. You're just honed in. So there's a lot to be said in the amount that you transact. In addition to that, there's a lot to be said on the value side of what you're only going to get paid what you believe you're worth and what your product is worth. So I think for someone to go from free to say, I'm going to charge, that's where all those questions came up, right? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be able to actually deliver on the value once I take money from people? And what will that do to the business? But now, obviously, I'm sure if you said whatever number, you just know that people are going to pay you because you believe that you can deliver that number.
Yep.
And that just takes time. I love that Nick brought this last point up about actually charging for what you're passionate about. And I think for a lot of us, there's always this internal battle because we don't think of this as a money-generating pursuit. We think of this as pursuing our passion. And yet, if you've listened to any of our interviews, you know that most of the most successful people we've interviewed have actually turned their passions into their business. So what you want to focus on is letting go of your limiting beliefs, letting go of the perceived reality that you have about charging, and just put yourself out there and see how that goes. You will be shocked and amazed how time and time again, it will actually yield you better results than when you weren't charging before, as Nick so alluded. So that wraps up part 1 of our interview. Make sure you check out part 2, where we'll talk about how to hire the perfect employee. We'll look at a Twitter strategy that they've implemented that's been incredibly successful, and a couple of tips about releasing your first product or business offering. Hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you're listening, and leave us a rating or a comment. That is the best way that you can give back to us. And until we speak again, have an amazing, amazing day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors?